Further debate, the Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And thank you very much for the opportunity to address this legislation. Obviously, Speaker, I'm quite pleased to rise in support of the Economic Recovery Act here in the legislature. Of course, this bill includes various provisions to improve, to modernize, and reform the education system in the province of Ontario. Speaker, we face an unprecedented challenge in our province. And I think before we proceed, we should recognize the strengths in our democracy, the fact that we are able to have these discussions, the fact that we're able to have closed calls with our critics, or they're able to hear from their perspectives or give briefings. These types of things I think are important. And I think what the bill reflects is the priorities of, yes, our stakeholders, but perhaps the single greatest stakeholder in this province is the parents and the taxpayer of this province who've urged government to take action to improve the quality of education. And Speaker, I just want to acknowledge, if I may, my parliamentary assistant, the member from Niagara West, for his incredible leadership, for working so hard over the past weeks to listen to parents, listen to students, and of course listen to educators and their staff. I also want to give a shout out to the workers within our system, our educators, our education staff, our directors, everyone involved in the system, in the education ecosystem, who have really stepped up in a very profound way, knowing that they have families and they have pressures, but they've demonstrated, I think, the very best of the human condition, which is to do whatever it takes to make a difference for your community and for your country. And I think they are indeed reflective of our praise. Speaker, we have endeavoured to inform the system. I mean, we are not, respectfully, the political party in this legislature that will defend the status quo. We were brought on with a mandate to improve it, notwithstanding as inexpedient or tough as those reforms may be, they are necessary. And I will start in any particular order, but I will start with one element that has come up in this House in the context of ensuring a meritocracy, that the best educator, the best leader, the best administrator rises to the top. That shouldn't be, I would submit, a particularly controversial statement. I would argue that really should be the aspiration, especially when it comes to our children, Speaker. The next generation, we want them to be in front of the best people, whoever they may be, from all diverse backgrounds. Today, we are, in some respects, we're celebrating Director of Education in Toronto, Carleen Jackson. The members opposite, many of them are from Toronto. And Carleen is the first Black female Director of Education in our province. And that, I think, is very special. She has spent 20 years in the public sector leadership. She's a CPA by profession. But, she has a deep passion for equity, as well, a deep passion for public education. And it's interesting, in Carleen's case, she's not a teacher. And what's fascinating is that the unanimity of the Toronto board, every single trustee in Toronto, asked me to essentially amend a regulation to permit that individual, the best individual to rise to the top. And of course, Speaker, within 24 hours, I did so. Speaker, we have a duty to ensure the best person runs what is often multifaceted, deeply complex, multi-billion-dollar corporations. And the fact that the Toronto District School Board, where members opposite hail from, unanimously chose this individual, knowing her deep experience in education, yes, but also her professional competence as a CPA, they thought she was the right person. And that speaks volumes. It is a contemporary example because the proof point cannot be more relevant today. Today, she commences her term. Today, John Malloy ends his, and we express our gratitude for his incredible leadership in Toronto. But the fact is, Speaker, when it comes to this reform, we need to ensure that the right person, the best person at the job. And, I spoke to the Attorney General, my colleague, some months ago, and he had noted to me this concept that in healthcare, they have moved away, to be fair, in the public service leadership of having hospitals run these having doctors run these hospitals. And the question fundamentally is, what is different? I'm not sure I heard a very compelling or cogent response to the very effective question raised of what is the difference? Actually, what is the difference? We want professionals who are running multi-billion-dollar asset classes, often hundreds of thousands of students they're managing, and of course responsible for tens of thousands of staff. Now, I know many boards will continue to utilize the incredible talents of educators, no doubt that. This change, does not preclude their ability to choose an educator, but it expands that. And I would submit to the members opposite who challenged the premise on equity, to the member from Beaches East York who criticized the concept of this amendment, suggesting that, this is an appalling act. Speaker, Right now in the province of Ontario, and I say this with great respect and reverence for directors in the province of Ontario, but right now we have less than 4% of directors are from visible minority communities. We can do better than 4%. We could aspire to choose, yes, merit-based individuals, highly qualified, but yes, who also happen to better reflect the communities we represent and we live. That is not a target or a benchmark I'm prepared to defend. We are not prepared to defend that. We expect better of our boards to select qualified individuals, yes, of diversity and of professional diversity as well. And that's why this amendment, we believe, is so important to get it right. Now, Speaker, there are 20 directors of education who have noted they're going to be retiring or that have signaled they will be retiring in very short order. We have a generational opportunity to get this right. And I believe now is the time to get on with it, Speaker. Speaker, we also have an opportunity to diversify our workforce in our schools. You know, if we are going to be agents of change and defend the interests of students, which is why I would submit we are here, then we must be prepared to do what is right to ensure that the regulations that are within the Education Act and are reflected within our system ensure that indeed diversity is an aspiration we could achieve. And in many schools, and I know this in Peel, as we know this in many boards, but as I often speak with the member from Mississauga and Brampton and many other regions, the issue is well defined. There are schools with over 50% of kids from racialized communities and disproportionately small numbers of educators and education staff who reflect that experience. Now, I believe in a meritocracy. I believe qualified educators must rise to the top. But to preclude a principal from choosing a merit-based educator that happens to be of that diaspora, that ethnocultural background, is utterly preposterous and antithetical to the principle of merit that we strive for when it comes to our children. From a pedagogical perspective, what more do we want than having the best educator with the qualifications and the specialized learning that could help your child succeed in life? That is what we seek. It's why we've made clear we will advance that within these reforms. But, Speaker, even above and beyond that, when we look at the broader frame of equity, I would not trivialize these changes. And I will argue that many members of all parties in this House, including some today, have called for these very changes. And I appreciate their advocacy, because on the issue of optimizing the ability and really equalizing the playing field and giving dignity back to every single child, this should not be a matter of politics, Speaker. I believe there should be some element of unity of purpose in the legislature to say that when we know, in the context of streaming, when 25% of all students are streamed to apply, but in Toronto, and I use Toronto, Speaker, only as an example because their data is public, they're one of the few boards that are providing that data, racialized data, which our announcement helps to fix. But, Speaker, when 25% of all students are streamed to apply, but in Toronto, 47% of Black kids are streamed to apply, with less than 20% for non-Black kids, we know that there's a problem. And, Speaker, you know, when you go through the data and you understand that those kids that are streamed, those very kids, in this case, those Black children I spoke of in Toronto, 4.5 times more likely not to graduate. Only 1/3 will seek and actually pursue post-secondary education. I mean, Speaker, the problem is well known, but to be fair, it has been known for governments for generations. And we now have an opportunity to not just get it right, but align our efforts with the OECD that has called for streaming to be in the more latter grades, certainly 10 at the beginning or 11 and beyond. Now, we're the only jurisdiction in the country that does it in grade 9. It is this progressive Conservative government, yes, that's going to get it right and bring an end to that for all students in the province of Ontario. Speaker, in the context of suspensions, I mean, again, I would argue this is a pretty profound change. There has been significant advocacy from a variety of groups, and I appreciate that the member opposite has raised it applies, yes, to racialized communities, but also to special education kids, and that actually is important and something that is somewhat lost in this debate. But, Speaker, when 3% of all kids are suspended, and we see 40% of Black students in Toronto are suspended at least once compared to non-Black kids, roughly 18%. So a more than twice the rate of suspension disproportionately impacting Black children. We're talking about kids in kindergarten, in grade 1 or grade 2 or 3. We're talking about really innocent young minds. You know, Speaker, with respect, you know, this is not a data point that we can just go along with. In Toronto, 11% of the students, of Black students, represent about 11% of the student population, and yet in the context of suspension, 34% in Peel. Roughly 10% of the population, but 22.5% of the suspension rate. Twice the rate in Peel, 3 times the rate in Toronto. Folks, there's something wrong with the system. And when the Premier says it is broken, respectfully, while we have a superior system of advanced education, and I am incredibly proud, one of our greatest strengths is our skilled workforce, our talented, dynamic young women and men who enter and exit our education system, our public education system. We're proud of it. We know we do it well, but we can do it better. And that is the change narrative that we seek to advance in this debate, but also respect within this province. And we need to do that. The time for action is now. Speaker, in the context of investments, we have spoken often about this area of suspensions, and it was noted that these suspensions overrepresented for Black, Indigenous, for male LGBTQS students, for children in care, those with special needs. 50% of suspensions affecting special needs kids. I believe we can do better. And how do we do that? Well, we've set aside within the Grant for Student Needs over $40 million to support all school boards in the transition, in supporting them with a more restorative approach to justice, not a punitive one, for kids that fundamentally ought to be learning and changing behaviour through support of their educator in their school. Speaker, we've also announced an ancillary investment of $10 million in mental health. In that $10 million increase, this is on top of the province's historic doubling of mental health in Ontario. We have dedicated $1 million of that $10 million specifically for racialized kids on this very issue, to give them better opportunities and better pathways to success. The Indigenous and Black graduate program through the PPF that I announced, over $300 million in funding to support a variety of programs that really lift kids up and give them hope and that opportunity they deserve. Speaker, in that context, we've set aside $3.5 million to sustain that program, to make sure young people get access to incredibly talented coaches and leaders in their communities. Speaker, I'm honestly proud of the work that has been done in this area. We've also said, Speaker, that in the context of professional development, we need to do better. And I've said it clearly to the Federation partners, to the presidents directly, as well as to school boards and the chairs and directors, myself. We need to do better at improving our training regime in the province. It's not a comment on the motive or the altruism of people who enter education. It's vocational. They love kids. I know that. We all know that. But at the end of the day, Speaker, we could all professionally develop and be better in our endeavour to teach our kids. And so one area that we need to do better at, Speaker, indeed is in tackling the issue of discrimination. And, Speaker, when we see many challenges within our school boards, with many kids facing discrimination in their classes, I would argue there's a need for better training of our teachers, for mandatory training of all education staff. And, Speaker, I am proud that in consultation and collaboration with the Trustees Association, English and French across the province, we have got them on board to agree to ensuring mandatory training of all trustees in Ontario, which is historic and not been done in the context of discrimination and anti-racism training. That's an important step forward. It's going to help change the hearts and minds of our political leaders, of our educators, and of course of our students in the classroom, Speaker. We obviously know that when it comes to empowering young people to succeed, it also ensures that we have a system that's responsive to their priorities, not the priorities of any member of the House or special interest. It's really got to be about our students. And what we're hearing in 2020, no less, is that young people want access to the online market, to the virtual literacy that is required to get a decent-paying job in this country and, to be fair, in the industrialized world today. And so what we have done is we've empowered TVO and TFO, which are incredible agencies that throughout my life, for a generation, have been inspiring young minds in both official languages to learn. TFO, I joined my parliamentary secretary some months ago and the Minister of Francophone Affairs to celebrate the 1 billionth view on YouTube on TFO's platform. That is not inconsequential. They are one of the leading digital platforms when it comes to education in the country, and of course, no less a Francophone advocacy right here in the province of Ontario. I'm proud of that. In TVO, 18,000 students were educated through the ILC, through their learning program. This is an incredible demonstration that we have capacity. And while the members opposite perhaps would submit to create a standalone bureaucracy and spend tax dollars we do not have, I'd rather utilize the agencies that exist, that are credible, that are led by Ontario certified teachers with a record for generations, or for decades certainly, of quality education. So we're going to utilize them, Speaker, because, to be quite frank, in the matter of months, we're going to be back, or matter of weeks, we'll be back in September. We made a commitment, Speaker, to ensure that students have access to online learning. And so there's 90 courses today, about 50 in French, 40 in English. We're going to procure, using those agencies, an additional 10. 5 in French, 5 in English for September, 5 in French, 5 in English for January. And Speaker, what's fascinating about the concept is that at the end of the day, we're ensuring Ontario certified teachers we provide more optionality to students. And respectfully, all of our caucuses are diverse. I think it is unfair, and I think it almost has an element of this, an urban privilege to suggest that expanding course offerings for online learning is a bad outcome. For students in Kenora, they may not have the specialized courses or economies of scale in their school to have all the courses that folks in my riding or many of yours have. But by giving them access to virtual learning, we could help provide and universalize that experience, diversify their knowledge, and give them better access to courses to give them a pathway to a STEM career. So, Speaker, we're doing that. We are obviously consulting, and to be very clear, in the context of TFO and TVO, this element of the legislation will not come into force until consultation is done. And so we're making sure that we are listening to those voices. But at the end of the day, we're ensuring that we have more course offerings for students this September, which is our obligation. And that includes, Speaker, a commitment to our denominational rights for Catholic and French or minority communities. We absolutely recognize the importance from a constitutional perspective, and we are doing that in real time, Speaker. Speaker, I also just want to note very briefly about some of the broader reforms we brought in the context of that reform agenda, that change agenda I speak about. And while tangential, I would argue that modernizing the qualification of a director, ensuring more diversity in the classroom, ensuring a more equitable program for students from racialized and low-income communities is a good thing, but it has to be complemented by the curriculum that actually is going to help these young people succeed. And Speaker, I'm very pleased that we have updated our math curriculum with an emphasis, Speaker, on coding, financial literacy, and for the first time in this province, social-emotional learning. And what time better than today to introduce a math curriculum this September with social, emotional, mental health elements embedded in the legislation, embedded in the curriculum, rather, at a time when our kids will probably need that additional level of support. And so, Speaker, in the context of those children that need the most support, we also look to our children within our demonstration schools. And I've been really pleased to have incredible advocacy from so many members, obviously the member from Milton, the member from the Bay of Quinte, and of course members from London and Ottawa, right across Ontario, have called for the expansion and the double cohorting of these kids. Now, those students in provincial schools, as you will all know, are kids with an element of exceptionality. And I have been to the E.C. Drury School, the Trillium School in Milton, really an incredible school. And when I was there, I met this young girl named Vicky Pike. I happened to host her at the legislature, meet her amazing Aunt Joy, her guardian, and Vicky has been an incredible advocate for the demonstration school. Now, when we had to close school, Speaker, it was a tough decision, notwithstanding it was the right decision for public health. But the impact of that closure meant that a young child that got a one-year residential program with some of the best educators in our province, with specialized supports and experiential learning, that had to close, and that really broke their hearts. And so, Speaker, when we permitted the double cohort, before I made that announcement, I called Vicky. And I told her it is because of her, and I mean it. It literally is because of the voices of all members. Of course, our caucus led the way, but Vicky, respectfully, was perhaps the most compelling. This young woman literally urging the Minister of Education to make this change. And I was so moved, so impressed, and inspired by her leadership. Obviously, the Cabinet decided, and the caucus decided, it would be the right thing to do to permit a double cohort for those kids specifically. So, Speaker, I think what we've demonstrated is when it comes to education, we are going to make sure that the system is responsive to the economic needs of our province and our country, to give opportunity to young people that no longer we have to accept as a point in this legislature that young people have twice the rate of youth unemployment. It is a continued reality for young people in this House. And I'm proud to have, no less 13 millennials within our legislature. I'm proud, within our party, rather. I'm proud to have that diversity of experience and opinion. I'm proud to be joined by an educator, by 2 educators, no less, within our caucus that I'm aware of, and by a variety of parents, moms and dads, and taxpayers and hardworking folks who simply want to ensure that the next generation of our province and country is set up to succeed. Speaker, I'm going to continue on that mission to drive change, and I look forward to the support of all members to achieve that for our kids. Thank you, Speaker.